When World War II finally ended, millions of American soldiers came home not just to parades and tearful reunions, but to a nation holding its breath, ready for a new beginning. They had faced the horrors of war, and now they wanted something simple. Something they had fought for, a piece of the American dream. For many, that dream looked a lot like a small house with a white picket fence, a green lawn, and a quiet street where their kids could play safely. This wasn't just a fantasy. It was about to become the reality for a generation, and it would change the face of America forever. This is the story of the rise of the American suburbs. Before the war, most Americans lived in one of two places: bustling, crowded cities or remote, rural farms. The idea of a suburb as we know it today was a luxury for the wealthy, but the post-war era brought a perfect storm of conditions that would blow that old model away. The first and most crucial ingredient was the GI Bill of 1944. This landmark piece of legislation was a thank you from a grateful nation to its veterans. It offered a range of benefits, but the most transformative was the home loan guarantee. For the first time, a regular working-class veteran could get a mortgage with a very low interest rate and incredibly little to no down payment. The door to home ownership, once locked tight, was suddenly thrown wide open. At the same time, the country was experiencing a massive baby boom. From 1946 to 1964, an unprecedented number of babies were born. All these new families needed a place to live, and the cramped city apartments just weren't cutting it anymore. They needed space, bedrooms, and yards. The demand was astronomical. The cities were full, and the old housing stock was often run down. People dreamed of clean air, safe neighborhoods, and modern homes. Enter the visionaries, or perhaps the opportunists of the era. Men like William Levitt saw this immense demand and a way to meet it on an industrial scale. Levitt wasn't just building houses, he was building communities from scratch, using mass production techniques he'd learned from the auto industry. He bought huge tracts of cheap farmland outside major cities, like on Long Island, New York. His company, Levitt and Sons, broke down the home construction process into 27 simple, repeatable steps. Instead of craftsmen moving from house to house, specialized crews moved down the line from foundation to framing to roofing to painting. It was an assembly line for houses. The result was astonishing. At the peak of production in Levittown, New York, a new house was completed every 16 minutes. These weren't custom-built mansions. They were simple, standardized two-bedroom Cape Cod-style homes. They came with a kitchen already equipped with the latest appliances like a refrigerator and a washing machine, which were incredible luxuries for many families at the time. And the price? Around $8,000. With the GI Bill, a veteran could move in for practically nothing down and have a monthly mortgage payment that was often cheaper than renting an apartment in the city. Imagine being a young couple in 1948. You've been living with your parents or in a tiny city apartment with a new baby. Suddenly, you can own your own home, a brand new home with a yard for your child to play in. It felt like a miracle. Millions seized the opportunity. Between 1950 and 1956, the number of Americans living in suburbs grew by 46%. Levittown was just the beginning. Similar developments sprang up all over the country, from Park Forest, Illinois, to Lakewood, California. The landscape of America was being physically reshaped, acre by acre. This mass migration was fueled by another post-war obsession, the automobile. The 1950s was the golden age of the American car, with new federal investment in an interstate highway system, initiated by President Eisenhower in 1956. Commuting from these new suburbs to city jobs became not just possible, but practical. The car became a symbol of freedom and status. It was the key that unlocked the suburban lifestyle, connecting the quiet residential streets to the bustling urban centers where the jobs were. A two-car garage became a new status symbol, a sign that you had truly arrived. Life in these new suburbs had a distinct culture. It was a culture of conformity and community. Everyone's house looked the same, everyone's lawn was mowed to the same height, and everyone seemed to be striving for the same ideal of the perfect family. Television shows from the era. like Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best, projected this image to the entire nation. A working dad, a stay-at-home mum, and happy kids in a pristine suburban setting. There were backyard barbecues, PTA meetings, and little league games. For many, it was a safe, predictable, and wonderful world to raise a family in. However, this idyllic picture wasn't the whole story. The suburban dream was, for many, an exclusive one. The same federal housing policies and private developers that made homeownership possible for millions of white families actively excluded others. Racially restrictive covenants were common, explicitly forbidding the sale of homes to African Americans and other minority groups. The Federal Housing Administration often refused to insure mortgages for black families, trying to buy in predominantly white suburbs, a practice known as redlining. So, as white families moved out to the gleaming new suburbs, minority communities were often left behind in underfunded urban centers, creating a pattern of segregation that still affects our cities today. The suburban lifestyle also had its critics. Some lamented the cookie-cutter uniformity and the perceived lack of culture and intellectual stimulation compared to the city. The term suburban sprawl entered the vocabulary, describing the endless, car-dependent expansion that ate up farmland and natural habitats. The reliance on the automobile also led to new problems like traffic jams and air pollution. For many women, the role of the suburban housewife, while idealized on television, could be isolating and unfulfilling, a phenomenon Betty Friedan would famously call the problem that has no name in her book, The Feminine Mystique. Despite these criticisms and profound inequalities, the suburban boom was an unstoppable force. It defined the post-war American experience. It created a massive, prosperous middle class and cemented homeownership as a cornerstone of the American dream. It dictated our transportation policies, shaped our retail landscape with the rise of the shopping mall, and fundamentally changed how Americans lived, worked, and interacted with each other. Looking back from today, the legacy of that era is all around us. The vast majority of Americans now live in suburbs. The patterns of development, the reliance on the automobile, and the social and racial divides that were established in those frantic post-war years continue to shape our society. The story of the rise of the suburbs is not just a story about houses and highways. It's the story of a nation remaking itself in the wake of a global conflict, striving for peace, prosperity, and a place to call home. It's a story of dreams realized, and for some, dreams deferred. It's a complex, controversial, and quintessentially American story. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what you think about the suburban legacy. We'll see you in the next one.